Digital Future Society's Meetup 2020. For those who met me during the discussion sessions, welcome back. For those who haven't, my name is Francisco Mafuz, and I'll be your facilitator for today. Our event is going to be divided in 6 major blocks. In the first part, I'm going to take you through an outline of today's session, and we're going to watch an inspirational talk from Dr. Andreu Vea. Then we're going to have 4 interactive sessions covering the 4 separate tracks from the engagement process: data governance, future of work, digital inclusion, and lastly, tech and climate emergency. In these interactive sessions, you'll be invited to help us define the most important priorities going forward. You are welcome to join all 4 sessions, but you can also just join the ones you have more of an interest or an expertise in. Finally, there will be a wrap-up, which will include some important figures from the engagement process and some of the next steps looking towards 2021. The platform in which you're watching this event, there has a couple of other areas that I would like to highlight: the chat and the networking area. First of all, feel free to ask any questions you have on that chat. Our team will do their best to respond to those questions in real time during the event. Secondly, it probably goes without saying that we would have loved to have this event live here in Barcelona, but just because we couldn't, that doesn't mean you should miss out on networking with all the other participants. And that's what the networking area in the platform is all about. There you can find everyone that is taking part in today's event, so we encourage you to reach out and connect to those people. That platform will stay open until the 20th of December, so you have plenty of time to do that. I'd like to remind you that this session is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch a video of the whole session later on in the platform. And I'd also like to invite you to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Today and in the upcoming weeks, we will be sharing key insights from today's event, including videos, Q&As, and useful infographics from all the different topics. And if you post anything about the event, please remember to use the official hashtag, which is DFS Meetup 2020. The talk we're going to watch now is from Dr. Andreu Vea. He's an internet pioneer known as the Internet Biographer. He is a researcher, an entrepreneur, and a well-known speaker, and he's passionate about communicating how the internet can improve our lives. Among his many awards, he was chosen by the European Commission in 2014 as the Digital Champion for Spain. What he's going to share with us today is how the collaborative power of the web has been used to mitigate the harmful effects of the pandemic in Spain. Please enjoy Dr. Andreu Vea.
Thank you so much, Francisco. I am really delighted to be here in Barcelona today with all you guys. And probably you have noticed that we are at war. We are at war against an enemy that's not visible. We can't see the SARS-CoV-2. So I would like to start in a different way, paying a tribute of 1 minute of silence as an homage to all those who passed away already. Let's start. I will explain you later what you have seen right now. But as humans, we have 700,000 hours of duration. Well, so it's always, old lady that can last more. But if you remove the time that you are sleeping, it's 470,000 hours. I mean with that, so many people here, 200 people, I'm going to be 20 minutes. That means a lot of hours that I'm taking away. So I am very concerned to go really quick and to communicate as much as I can. When you hear something, you forget. So I will try to make this presentation all graphic, no text, in order for you to get more in less time. So as an engineer, you know about the cloud. Today, I haven't come here to sell you anything at all. I'm just an observer of the world. This is a picture. It's 3 a.m. in the night in Tarragona, in the landscape. But if you get this camera long time, you can see the Milky Way. You can see it's like at 3 p.m., not 3 a.m. Today, I have a big challenge. This challenge is to change your life. What? Let's try it. Imagine that you are 150 years ago, and I would like to think in your great-grandfather. What was his business? What was he doing? Probably it was related to the pictures you are seeing here. 80% of the population were farmers or agriculturists. In fact, 10,000 years ago, when agriculture was invented, all the population was devoted to the fields, to the farms. We had been 10,000 years digging on the soil. But guess what? In less than 200 years, the people who were devoted to agriculture went from 90% to 2.6% right now. You're going to ask me, were the jobs lost? All of them. Robots will occupy most of our jobs in 20 years. I'm not saying this. The guys from MIT are telling us that whatever can be automatized, robotized, it's going to be automatized. So humanity will face its greatest challenge. What will you find your meaning of your life when work is no longer necessary? So the question is, will jobs be lost? And probably the answer is yes, all of them will be lost. And that's good. This is good. It's not a problem. Why? Well, in fact, there is a website which willrobotstakemyjob.com that you can put your job. It's couriers, messengers. As more boring your job is, the probability of you losing it is higher. So imagine messengers 90%, engineering technicians 25%. Well, if you are an accountant, you have a problem. You have 94% of that you can lose it. But if you are a physician or a surgeon, you are right. The problem is another thing. Is 50% of the Spaniards surgeons and physicians will retire in the next 5 years. And building a medical doctor, it takes 10 years. So we have a big problem here. Let's look at in a perspective way, because lost are lost. When jobs will be lost. But we can face it.
It's changing every day, in every possible way.
She's the last one. Is the way to move from IT, wherever you are, Don't be afraid of computers. It's the future. So let's talk today. After this initial reflection, I divided this presentation in 3 pieces. We are 3 topics. It's the digital way. I'm going to speak about society, and I'm going to speak about the future. The digital future society, but in different order. So let's start with the past. This person, it's Vint Cerf, the inventor or the co-inventor of the internet, the guy who created the TCP/IP and who made the foreword of my doctoral thesis and invited me at Stanford. This place changed my life entirely because I moved there for 1 year. In fact, I was like 6 years at Stanford. That changed completely my life. And after that, I realized that I already in 1980s had this machine. And this machine is an acoustic modem, 300 bits per second. So nowadays, the network backbones go 300 gigabytes per second. This is a factor of 1,000 million times bigger in my proper life. And I know that I will see more things. In the 1990s, I was the super cool guy with these things. It's it's an infrared an infrared communication, which it's 1 byte every half an hour, so it was really slow. And well, in 1968, this person, Duke Engelbert, was the inventor of the mouse. That changed completely. Not only the mouse, he put a monitor. The first computer monitor, you are seeing it, and the first mouse, it was with a wheel. Can you see the wheel? This woman here, and that monitor is not flat; it's a square monitor. It's from a submarine, from a radar. And he created, Duke Engelbert created all the environment of the office. 1969, these are the team who created the first router. In this case, we would talk about a fridge or refrigerator. Can you see? So huge. Now it's a small thing, right? 1971, this guy changed your life, but you don't know him because you think that the internet was created by Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. Nothing to do. These are the guys who created the new world and are completely unknown. Especially if you see this black bar, is that he passed away. But before, I interviewed them and I recorded digitally for the future 2 hours each of these pioneers, each of these heroes for me. You don't know Jack Feiler, for instance, but she changed your life. She created the .org, .net, .mil, .arpa. She said .com no because business won't use that. Well, they put it later, but that's the thing. 2001, Jim Wales created the new Wikipedia, the new encyclopedia for everyone. This is Vint, for Americans, really Lincoln Memorial. It's really nice to have had the opportunity to live with them and to be friends with so many people around the world, collecting all these histories and stories that they like it. These 20 people that you can see here, it changed completely the world. And this is what I put in a very nice way, that you can listen to their voices, telling you how they created the internet. It took me 23 years, the research, and 5 years writing and 3 editing, because I didn't want that, the techie book that nobody reads. This is like a magazine with all the pictures and everything. Let's stop here with the past and move to the society. You probably have heard about the third revolution, the fourth. Nobody states, but what we know is that there were a big change with the steam. Later on, with electricity, it changed a lot. And the semiconductor and the chips in the 1970s again changed the world. Now we are talking about the fourth revolution. And the fourth revolution, the ingredients, we have heard about all of them. 3D printing, quantum computing, biotechnology, nanotechnology, autonomous cars, blockchain. I won't talk about blockchain. I know that everybody is talking about blockchain, but not here. Robotics, artificial intelligence. But let's talk about this in a practical way. I'm going to show you, I introduce you Dr. Carolina García Vidal from the clinic here in Barcelona, Hospital Clinic. She reduced with her artificial intelligence and prevented half of all deaths from severe COVID-19 patients. How she did that? Well, she took 11 billions of data. One data is one sample of a patient. And she took 10,000 variables of each patient. She created a huge data lake and started identifying patterns, and she can infer and predict what will happen to the patient the next 48 hours. That is magic? No, it's artificial intelligence. And this is a real story, and that's what I like. The real stories that took me in March 8th, 2020, took me to Vienna in Austria because I am the World Summit Hours global jury. And there were people from China, from Italy, from Iran, all the hotspots, remember, right? March 8th, that had that COVID in their countries. So when I went back to home, my wife, she's a scientific woman. She's in our team, she's the best. The scientist, she said, wow, remove your clothes, everything out. You go to the shower and directly to the dark room. I mean dark room, as that I was there for 14 days in a room without no TV, no newspapers, no radio, just a cell phone and an internet connection. I was alone. I was fine. No, it was just preventing, it's a quarantine. But she was not sure of that 14 days. And she decided I was going to be there for 21 days, then 22. At the end, the 23rd was my birthday, and I went out really, really happy. You know, I was marking, this like on the wall, marking scratch to the how long it takes. But what happened when you close a person who started getting calls from my friends crying, saying, my father passed away, my mother passed away. Carlos called me and she said, my father and my mother passed away, both of them. And I was empathizing a lot with them and said, we should do something. And we did something. I have to say that to give huge thanks to my wife to take care of me, because I was like a prisoner over there. But I asked my community to say, can you help me to help those who help? Who are those who help? The people, medical doctor, nurses, let's help them. And they responded. This is 1,800 people all around the world. I mean, 98 cities of the 5 continents. And 80 of them, in 24 hours, came to me and they said, let's do it. What? I don't know. Let's do something. There were 80 people. These 80 people, we created that innovation out of desperation because we didn't know what to do. We get the contact tracing app from South Korea. We bring it here. We tried to translate it. Then the government didn't, they were not prepared. So we couldn't connect that app to the sanitary, to the health system in Spain. So it was so frustrating for me because we could translate that and it was really quick. We couldn't do that, so we decided to do things without taking care of the public administration, and we created the COVID Warriors. COVID Warriors is the power to interconnect the human intelligence with fighting COVID-19. And what's that? We created this group, what we call the War Room, because this is a war. The War Room, we're meeting every night at 9:30 p.m. We were for 175 days non-stop in Barcelona, Moscow, and Madrid. And these guys you can see here were starting this movement that when I was interviewed on the day of my birthday, I answered with just 10 sentences. I would like you to listen what we called these thoughts of a warrior.
Diuen que cada dia n'hi ha més. Es multipliquen perquè tots tenen un objectiu comú. Potser no ho saps, i tu ets un d'ells. Fas sempre el que creus que els agradaria rebre als altres. No demanes permís? Prefereixes demanar perdó. Actues. Penses en gran i penses per a tothom. Fuges de les idees polítiques. Busques l'excel·lència i t'apartes de la mediocritat. T'apropes sempre a qui consideres millor que tu. Jugues net i ensenyes les teves cartes. Transparència. Busques aportar valor vagis on vagis. T'agradaria fer feliços els que estan al teu costat. Treballes com si haguessis de morir demà. Però estudies i aprens com si fossis etern. Si tens aquests pensaments, no hi ha dubte. Tu ets Covid Warrior. Formes part d'un grup d'homes i dones que lluiten contra la Covid a partir del coneixement, la tecnologia i una manera de fer proactiva i positiva. Guerrers contra la Covid. Covid Warriors. Estem a punt perquè ja fa temps que ens estàvem preparant.
What you just have seen was created in 3 cities in less than 46 minutes. Since I answered with the sentences, the quotes that moved my life, actually. Somebody put it nicely, then another put the voice, and another the video. And in 46 minutes, we had this video, and many people joined more, and this 80 initial team converted to 200 people team, later on 400, 500 of engineers, 253 elite medical doctors, 34 lawyers, computer scientists, biotechnologists. Most of the biggest and the brightest team joined together, and we organized all this in 14 divisions. We had a general of division in each of the things, because this is a ward, and we did every night the war room to coordinate all the projects and all the realities. They are not projects anymore. Most of them, we'll see the robots here. It's some of them, but I'm going to show you. The robots were really well known for this, but I'm going to show you something that we recorded. You know, these 78 RPM records, very old. This music that is not anymore, it's not Spotify, it's not in YouTube, it's not anywhere. But because the days where these old people that we have in residence were 15 to 25 year old, this is 1950s. So we create the 50s. It's like a playlist of the 50s from the 50s. And here you have this 50 playlist song created, recording and digitalizing these all super old records, vinyls. And we did that. And even the SGAE, which is the society that here manages all the copyrights, they allow us to copy it everywhere, in the USB, in a CD-ROM, in YouTube. We spread all this music to these people. Even if you have an Alzheimer, you show and you put to listen this music that when a person was 15 and she starts singing. It's magic. I am not saying that, it's proven. So we did that. Even Telefonica joined us, and they created this team to put in residence and hospitals where all people were. This is one of the projects. Cántame. It's an imperative. Sing to me. Derecho a conectarse. It's the right to connect. Everybody says the right to connect, but many people couldn't say goodbye to their families when they are 14 days in the hospital and they were overwhelmed and nobody could talk. So we got from Orange Foundation 2,000 tablets, and from Telefonica 100, I think it's 1,200 more. So more than 3,000 tablets. We had so many volunteers just to connect the SIM. And I'm going to explain you this project just with 20 seconds. Check this person who, with a volunteer, can connect after so many days with their relatives and parents at home directly from the hospital. This is very easy, but nobody did that. We have done that. Also, these are courageous women, but who are also doctors. Most of the Spanish population, as you know, they were clapping, and they got an applause for the medical doctor at 8 p.m. every day. We didn't have time to clap, but doctors clap at us. They are showing the COVID warrior sign, you see, because we were helping in really impact things. Let's see one of them. The COVID robots project was done by these 5 people, regular people, that we united, and we started doing this. These were like dishwashers. These robots were, we started in 4 hospitals, the biggest of Spain. And then from there, we got more petitions from many hospitals. And we used planes from Inditex because Spain was a completely out of service country, I would say. And also with the bullet train, we transport these boxes up and down from Barcelona to Madrid. We finally got in all the news after 22 days without sleeping. You can see with this lost sightseeing. And the thing is that we finally made it. The question was PCR positive or negative. Our answer were these 194 robots installed in all the hospitals. So these are, it's like we made for all the programmers. Remember that we didn't charge anything. It's all volunteer based, and most of the money came from private companies. We created the Air Virus Terminator. We made different devices. I introduced you Betty. It's a reduction of viral loads for hospitals and corridors. And this is the war room. This is the people who met every night to create things like this. In 20 seconds, all the fungus, bacteria, and viruses are destroyed with no infection capacity. The action and the word most search is clean. Any scenario infected and prepared for the next battle. This is assume this machine for sterilization. You can see it patrolling already in a hospital in Barcelona with the most modern that you know in the mobile. This operating room was the scenario of the first 5G connection. So this is where the day it worked with all the happiness with this picture behind. So introduce you Assume, this thing that kills the virus in less than 5 minutes. And let's finish with the future. The future is always more difficult to predict, but any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Computers are getting smaller, and you know that. This is a computer. What's this? Hello, I'm a race grind, and this is a computer. So we are trying to put this knowledge in a new endeavor. We call it Aireamos, in order to measure all the CO2, because the CO2 is really important in buildings. Most of the old people knew it when the old houses were really high, because the people got infected with airborne. And imagine that you are in a car, okay? In the car, you can be like 5,000 ppm part per million, but you have to ventilate, you have to put air, because the probability of getting infected is higher. And so you have to memorize the 700 ppm, which is the threshold where you are safe or not. So when you are in a big party, be careful with the CO2. It's the times that this air has been expired. So be careful. It's the way you can measure in a small thing. We are creating this thing. We created prototypes like this one, but the problem is that the good one is 200 euros. We wanted to move it to 20 euros. Don't buy the 20 euros right now, because it doesn't work. The ones that work today, in December, is from 200 to 10,000 euros. So it's really expensive if you start thinking on putting in each school, right? The problem is that we have a goal of producing 70,000 to give it away in all the schools of Spain. We have already the prototypes, and we will try to create this Windows manager, because if the kid knows that it's clean, you can close the window. You don't need to be cold. In Spain, in some part of Spain, it's really cold in winter. And finally, we are helping these two groups in MIT and also in the Lausanne in Switzerland to diagnose this COVID just coughing with artificial intelligence. And just to tell you one last thing, the intelligent man knows everything, but the wise man knows everybody. That I'm telling you, because if you think about what have these two objects in common, you'll tell me carbon. You're right, carbon atoms. But social networking and the things that we are doing today here to get together people from many parts of the world is really important, because depending on how you sort these carbon atoms, you can get graphite, which is soft and dark, or you can get diamond, which is the hardest and very clear material. But those properties do not reside in the carbon atoms. They arise because the interconnections between them. So similarly, the pattern of connections among people confers upon groups of people different properties. So I would say that our experience of the world depends on the structure of the networks in which we are residing. I repeat, depending on the networks you are surrounded, your experience of the world is going to be completely different. So I am practicing what I am telling you, and we create this community, IP community, and you can measure how are related all the people you know, and there are tools to do that, to the people from Stanford, all these social circles. And remember, we are the primitives of an unknown civilization. The ones who come later us will laugh at us because we are doing stupid things. We are publishing all our private life. We are giving it away. We are doing really, really weird things. We are the primitive of an unknown civilization. And I'm gonna start and finish this, showing you that we baptized all the robots in Hospital Clinic and all the hospitals with the names of the fathers and the mothers of all our teams that were developing, that were programming for 23 days in a row, day and night. So I think that the best thing we could do is to give an homage of their parents and mothers and all the grandfathers that passed away. So our robots are with us, our robots are fighting day and night, and they have all the names of these people. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And now I would like to welcome on stage Cristina Colom, the Director of Digital Future Society, and she's going to share some of the outcomes from all the activities organized in 2020, and she's going to give us a glimpse of the strategic view of what's coming in 2021. Cristina, welcome.
Thank you, Francisco. And good afternoon to everyone. I hope this vibrating speech from Dr. Andreu Vea has inspired you, or at least has provoked some food for thought. I would like to start by thanking you for joining us today in this session, but most of all, I want to really thank you for having actively participated in the different activities from Digital Future Society during this 2020, while we were establishing bridges of debate, and we are aiming at having or shaping this digital agenda of the future, which needs to be more sustainable, more equitable, and fairer for all. As you know, Digital Future Society is supported by the Spanish Ministry of Economic Affairs and Digital Transformation through the third Vice President of the Spanish government, Nadia Calviño, through the Secretary of State of Digitalization and Artificial Intelligence, Carme Artigas, and also through the Barcelona Mobile World Capital Foundation, led by Carlos Grau, an entity of reference in the digital ecosystem that aims at driving the digital transformation to help improve people's life globally. I am certain you agree with me that we are experiencing a high level of uncertainty period. And I am sure we all have in mind the impact of the pandemics, which is definitely one of the critical issues. But let's face that we have other challenges in the society, such as the tragedy in the Mediterranean, different forms of terrorism or exclusion, and inequalities in societies which are actually growing rather than decreasing. To be honest, if you look at the final picture, it is quite gloomy, to say the least. And I think we need to enlighten, we need to brighten this picture. We need to make a better world. I am sure that this is really an ambitious goal, but I am also sure we can achieve it. If we look at the 17 United Nations Sustainability Development Goal, it talks about partnership, global partnerships. If we work in collaboration, if we work in cooperation between the public and the private sector, I am certain we can change this world. I would like to say, or I would like to thank in particular the Office of the Special Advisor for Digital Cooperation from the United Nations under Secretary General Fabricio Hochschild, who is one of the promoters of this digital cooperation. The coronavirus crisis has led to evidence that the priorities that the Digital Future Society had previously identified have become even more relevant for all the agents involved in managing the current crisis. In this sense, our activity has been incessant. We have continued with our roadmap. We have expanded strategic collaborations, and we have deepened our actions to address key challenges posed to society, such as how to progress on digital inclusion versus digital exclusion, the future of work, the ethics behind data governance, or the significant environment footprint of technology. There is still much work to do in order to place technology at the service of citizens. And this is where we all have a key role to play. Allow me to very briefly summarize some of the key milestones for Digital Future Society during this 2020, where we have boosted its activity more than ever. On the one hand, I would say 2020, we had delivered a prolific research with a deep dive in the analysis, the reflections, and recommendations of concrete challenges, some of them aggravated by the pandemics. Just to provide you with a few examples, we have recently released a couple of reports focused on automated decision-making systems and the impact on public services, specifically on social programs, social protection programs. And in particular, we have found evidence that the automated decision-making systems tend to perpetuate gender inequalities. On another hand, we have also released a study on the opportunities and the risks of the emerging technologies and how through emerging technologies we would be able to face climate emergency. We have also focused a lot on digital labor platforms. I'm honored to say that during the pandemics, we worked very closely with the lab from the Inter-American Development Bank from Latin America, with whom we did a specific research on the impact of COVID-19 on different sectors of digital labor platforms, namely the digital service platforms, the delivery, and the personal care. With that study that we did through Spain and also Latin America, we learned the actions and the recommendations from those platforms in order to resist or in order to face the crisis. We have also done a very in-depth overview of the literature of the digital labor platforms in Spain, and we have found that there was not much written about that. On the other hand, we have also developed many activities throughout our lab, with which we try to identify and test digital solutions in response to economic, social, and environmental challenges defined in the main lines for digital future society. Only just to highlight one, we've been working very closely with the Commissioner Agenda 2030 from the Barcelona City Council, with whom actually also during the confinement period, we launched a call for solutions called Tech and Climate, in which we were looking for solutions to mitigate or at least reduce or measure the carbon footprint and the impact of the carbon footprint on the technological sector. We receive around 30 proposals from across the globe, between 14 or 15 countries put forward different proposals, and we awarded a Spanish one from a university, from the UOC, which is actually deploying a specific tool to measure and reduce the CO2 or the energy on the cloud services within the university systems. On the other hand, we also awarded a Canadian startup, Ossens, which is actually deploying a specific project to optimize the consumption and the production of energy in the energy systems. We have also carried out some of our activities that bring technology closer to citizens. During 2020, we celebrated the 4th edition of Mobile Week. This is an initiative, as I said, to bring technology closer to citizens. We celebrated not only in Barcelona, but also in other locations, reaching over 3,000 citizens and creating spaces for debate and putting forward different technological tools together with the concerns from an ethical or legal side. Let me finish just today, the 10th of December, where we commemorate the International Day for Human Rights, just to mention that we organize a digital session together with the Secretary of State for Digitalization and Artificial Intelligence from Spain, Carme Artigas, to put forward the Spanish Charter of Digital Rights. Actually, this Charter of Digital Rights is still open for consultation. From Digital Future Society, we believe it's an important step because it provides a framework for national authorities to look at how to navigate during this digital environment, looking at the advantage of its potentials, but also minimizing its risks. All what I just briefly described, there is much more, but what I just briefly described could not be done without collaboration, could not be done with the cooperation with all of you. Digital Future Society is in essence a connector. We liaise different voices who have a say on the digital agenda. And the session today brings us to the closing of a year in which, in one way or another, we've been collaborating with you. Today we have convened here to review the work of the 2020 engagement process, in which all of you some way have contributed to determine key issues in the 4 specific areas or tracks that Digital Future Society puts most of its effort. Today's session aims to summarize and share these milestones with you all, but it is not a full stop. It is one more step in the roadmap of this iterative process of reviewing and deepening the challenges that lie ahead, which should conclude in the drafting of the Digital Future Society Declaration that we would like to present during the Global Summit 2021. For this, I will give the floor back to Francisco so that he can begin the review of the different thematic areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. We will now start the first of our 4 interactive sessions, and this first one will be on data governance. To give you a deeper insight on this topic and the outcomes from this year, I would like to welcome now Karina Lopez, who is the head of Digital Future Society's think tank. Karina, welcome.
Thank you, Francisco. Welcome. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. So, as Francisco said, I'm the head of the Digital Future Society think tank, and the think tank, we lead research on the challenges emerging from the design, use, and governance of digital technologies. We actually work on the 4 verticals that we'll be discussing today with you at the nexus of tech and society. Based in Barcelona, all our work is operated at a global scale, and we aim at a cross-sectoral research approach where we empower leaders to anticipate challenges and take advantage of the opportunities of the digital era. I'd like to start by introducing the topic of data governance before going into the main issues that have been discussed during our engagement sessions during this year. We often have seen how data is described as the new oil. We also know that data is at the core of digital business models, and that when we talk about digital transformation, we are mostly talking about knowledge derived from data. The European Commission also has data at the center of its economic strategy and the Green Deal. All this forces us to have data governance at the top of our agendas. And data governance will be one of the main challenges that we'll face in the coming years. We'll have to see how far can we get to achieve a data global governance framework, but also a data ethical framework. Data protection regulation. We know how core it is. We've seen how critical this conversation with, for example, the EU General Data Protection Regulation, also known as GDPR, and how this regulation has influenced other governments throughout the world to put citizens at the center of their data regulation. We also have the challenge to qualify data and to understand these implicit risks and ethical concerns when we talk about different types of data. Personal data or industrial data or operational data, they are not the same, and they do not have the same level of risk when being handled. We also need more maturing to understand the ethical challenges that are derived of specific contexts, or for example, mixing different data sets. We have questions at the table related with traceability, explainability, processes of anonymization, also aggregation, and the impact of data sets being fed into machine learning systems. At the Digital Future Society, we have been looking at different aspects of data governance, and data permeates most of our work, as it will be expected when you talk about the tech and digital economy. In the last 18 months, we have been looking and writing about data ethics, business models that are privacy first, also issues with data sets in social welfare systems and gender bias, but also data metrics and collection around digital inclusion at global scale. And more currently, we've been working on the platform to business regulation that came into place earlier this summer in Europe. So moving on to the engagement process. The main aim of data governance engagement process has been to establish a common horizon and an agenda for action for the future where data governance includes ethical principles at its core and where data is conceived as a common good. And I know that many of you and the organizations already have this aim at the core of your activities and strategies. We have counted with support of over 30 organizations, and I want to thank you all for your inputs and knowledge sharing. We have come from so many sectors and geographic areas of our planet. We have counted with insights and inputs from development banks, from research organizations, banking industry, tech companies, international development agencies, but also civic society and public organizations. Throughout the engagement process, we have invited you to reflect on how can we move forward towards a better data governance. So I would like to share with you now some of the key topics of discussion that have come up and that we have worked on together over the last few months. So to start with, the conceptual understanding of data as a global good or global common or resource, and the need to generate debate around the different types of data and their intersections. Data regulation at global scale. There is an imperative need to build data regulation at the global scale, promoting interoperability standards and usage of data, taking into account multi-stakeholder but also bottom-up approach and ethical principles. Public data. We need to invest in public data to take advantage of its full potential, ensuring good quality of this public data in terms of integrity, inclusiveness, and representation. Public institutions must lead the way. But this will not be possible without digital capacity. Good data governance will only succeed with digital capacity at the government level, but also within the private sector and in particular our SMEs. Industrial data. We should encourage the development of digital economy by differentiating the regulation of applied to this industrial data and personal data. The challenges to do this differentiation are many, and how we define these lines. Moreover, policymakers should strive for certainty and streamlining regulation, avoiding conflicting regulatory frameworks, even cross borders. Data trust for users. And intrinsically related to all the topics that we have mentioned, it is essential to build data trust for users, for citizens, for vulnerable collectives. And remember, we all can be part of these vulnerable collectives at some stage of our lives. We need better alphabetization about data, more transparency and choice in order to enable businesses to be more sustainable in data usage, but also to avoid possible social backlashes. Public-private collaboration, and this is a repetitive topic across the 4 areas of work, and is connected to all the previous areas. Collaboration between the public and the private sector will be key at all levels. Data sharing. Tools and guidance on data sharing are required to advance in innovative solutions, in particular business to government data sharing for the public interest and the common good. Measuring data governance. Without setting standards and metrics to measure our efforts in data governance will be really difficult to see how we have been able to advance. Measuring data governance is essential to advance towards actionable recommendations and accountability. So thank you. I give the floor back to Francisco now, and he'll introduce you to the next dynamic. Thank you.
Karina. Now I'm going to ask you to vote on the following question. Which topics do you think should be prioritized? There are going to be 8 topics, and you get to choose up to 3 of them. And the options are data regulation at a global scale, quality and transparency, digital capacity at a government level, industrial data regulation and innovation, data trust for users, public-private collaboration, tools guidance on data sharing, and finally, measuring data governance. The way you're going to vote is by opening a separate tab on your browser or on your smartphone and going to the address you see on the top of your screen, www.menti.com, and typing the code you see there. As soon as you type in that code, the options should come up and become available to you. And again, we ask you to choose as many as 3 of those 8 options. You now have 4 minutes to do that. and the three most voted options were data regulation at a global scale, data trust for users, and quality and transparency. And what we'll now move to our second interactive session on the future of work. To give you a deeper insight on this topic and the outcomes from this year, I'm going to welcome back on stage Cristina Colom, Director of Digital Future Society. Cristina?
Thank you, Francisco. And hi again. I will follow similarly to Karina with data governance, and as Francisco was saying, I will share some of the insights and the results of this 2020 engagement process regarding future of work. It goes by no saying that future of work has become a hot topic of debate in the recent years. Globalization, demographic changes, automation, and the rise of digital labor platforms are already generating profound changes in the workplace, the workforce, and the nature of work itself. In regards to the growing number of digital labor platforms and platform work, the cost and benefits remain highly contested. And regulating this new form of employment is a challenge for policymakers and legislators. In general, platform work offers workers access to an income and flexible working arrangements. In informal economies or sectors, platforms can present an entry point to formal labor markets, both local and global. And for businesses, digital platforms open up new economic opportunities and the possibility to digitalize services. At the same time, platform work has attracted significant criticism from different stakeholders, from workers, from trade unions, from policymakers, and academics. Notably, the imbalance of power between platforms and workers inherent in the architecture of most platforms raises concerns about the erosion of the social contract, workers' rights, and collective bargaining power. The emergence of this novel way of organizing labor also raises new discussions of what it really means: decent, good, and fair work. Furthermore, as the European Pillar of Social Rights highlights, the problem is not only the social protection of platform workers, but of all the self-employed as well as those in non-standard forms of employment. Calls are being made for a new social contract, whereby workers' rights and social security are established and protected regardless of contractual arrangements and employment status. And the risks and liabilities arising from this pixelation of work are distributed fairly. In 2019, we started with the research on digital labor platforms and the search of those economies through those platforms. During this 2020, as I recently mentioned, we did a specific research because we zoom in specific markets. So we did specific research on literature in Spain, but we also have examined other markets such as India, where we examine how platform work is changing workers' professional identities and is helping to professionalize informal jobs. And as I mentioned as well, we've developed a study of the impact of the COVID-19 in different markets in Latin America and in Spain in different sectors of the digital labor platform. Let me highlight what we believe it's a milestone for Digital Future Society. With that initial research from 2019 on the search of digital labor platforms throughout an expert of one of our working groups. It was presented, it was indicated in the Future of Work Commission from the government of California. If I go to the engagement process results, what we try to do is to establish common horizons and an agenda for action for a sustainable digital future in which fairness and inclusion become core values and labor rights are guaranteed in the new jobs produced by this digital agenda. I'm happy to say that over 25 organizations have contributed to this engagement process. We have invited you to reflect on how we can move forward in the near future for a better future of work. We have identified different topics that have come up, and I will now present them in a very synthesized way. Asymmetry of information and power between platform and workers. Digital platform work has been acknowledged as an opportunity to formalize informal jobs, but at the same time faces a major challenge, this asymmetry of information and power between the platforms and the workers. Especially, there is a strong debate growing over increasing algorithm transparency so that workers can really use and control data to claim their rights. Research on the future of work should be transformed into political action. The role of policymakers is a key one. Cross-cutting perspectives are required, finding the right balance between protection and flexibility, and above all, increasing legal certainty. The political debate must increase, and research on the future of work, as I said, should be transformed into political action. Evidence-based policymaking. Coupled with that, governments should strive for evidence-based policymaking of new forms of work. In order to develop better policies, it is imperative to invest in research and information to contextualize the platform economy, its impact in different sectors, especially quantitative and qualitative studies that they should go beyond legal literature. Reskilling and digital skills. In this context, promoting skills for the future and reskilling opportunities for workers become a key factor to overcome challenging situations such as the current pandemic. It is essential then to identify successful governmental reskilling programs in order to replicate them. Gender and the future of work. But the changing nature of work is also having gender implications. Hence, policy should ensure that technological change supports a closing and not a widening of gender gaps. In this regard, digital platforms can become an economic opportunity for women and a lifeline in challenging economic situations. And last but not least, developing countries' innovation. Finally, the future of work also poses unique challenges for developing economies. In order to take advantage of this new paradigm, governments should take ownership in supporting the digital economy and digital skills, while also encouraging the development of innovative solutions and business models. I just synthesized a lot of the work that we carry out during this 2020 engagement process. The document, you can find it in the platform with more detail. So now I give back the floor to Francisco so that he can introduce the dynamic. Francisco?
Now I would like you to vote on the following question. Which topics do you think should be prioritized? There will be 6 options, and you can choose up to 3 of them. And the options are reskilling and digital skills, evidence-based platforms regulation, asymmetry of information and power between platforms and workers, transforming research into political action, gender and the future of work, and developing countries' innovation. Okay. Now, for everyone that was already logged into the previous session, these options would just appear on your screen, but for anyone who wasn't, please open a separate tab on your browser or smartphone and go to the address you see on your screen now, which is www.menti.com, and please type in the code that you see there, and the options will come up. So remember, you can choose up to 3 of them. You now have 4 minutes to do that. and the three most voted options were the asymmetry of information and power between platforms and workers, reskilling and digital skills, and gender and the future of work. Now, before we start our third interactive session on digital inclusion, we're gonna have a short break. And if you don't want to get up and stretch your legs and get coffee, you'll be able to watch our graphic facilitator, Carlotta Cataldi, doing the visual representation of the event that she's been doing throughout. So that will be on your screen, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Welcome back. To give you more insight into data, digital inclusion, and also the outcomes from this year's activities, I'm going to bring back on stage now Karina Lopez, Head of Digital Future Society's think tank. Karina?
Thank you, Francisco. Hello again. And following the same process, I'm going to introduce the Insights and Engagement Process 2020 results for digital inclusion. The digital divide has traditionally been described as the gap between those who have access to the internet and those who cannot. This approach entails providing internet access to underserved areas, but also to give tools and provide tools to those disadvantaged social groups. But as the work of many organizations here today demonstrate, connectivity offers a limited understanding of complexity of digital inclusion. In our work, we prefer to think about digital divides in plural and their 4 dimensions. I'm talking about use, access, skills, and supporting environment. For example, a 2014 Internet Society survey found that most no-internet users, in particular in the global north, are offline because of a lack of interest, understanding, or time, rather than problems with affordability or availability of access. Similar results have also been found recently in Barcelona. Technology-driven approaches tend to become problematic as they do not acknowledge these challenges. The rights and needs of users tend to be secondary, and the commercial interests of technology providers or tech-driven approaches tend to take the first level. We also know that context, economic status, and culture have a strong impact on how use takes place. The supposed objectivity of technology, and I'm talking about program functioning, design, and usage, is often subverted by variables as elements unexpected, creative hacks, lack of energy, lack of meaningfulness for target users, or language barriers. Thus, a clear understanding of the users and their needs, motivation, awareness, skills, and context is essential to an initiative that attempts to achieve a digital inclusion. The use of the plural digital divides represents, for this reason, the multiple reasons and manifestations of digital gaps. Lastly, digital literacy is and will be key in making digital inclusion a reality. Coupled with access to the internet and to digital devices, digital literacy can enable more people to make the most of digital transformation and to participate fully in a historic period witnessing the centrality of data-driven policies, technology-driven job market, and digitized public services. Without digital literacy, it will be hard to take advantage of these opportunities. At the Digital Future Society, we've been looking at different aspects of digital inclusion. We have analyzed the main global indexes, for example, on digital inclusion, to understand how digital inclusion is being measured. But we have also advocated for a stronger digital cooperation between the public and private sectors, but also universities and civic society, in order to achieve change. And this cooperation is also key when it comes to fighting disinformation or empowering our communities. But our work does not stop here, and we have been looking at the digital divides from a gender perspective, as we already mentioned, and the design of digital public services. So, the main aim of the digital inclusion engagement process has been to establish common horizons for a sustainable digital future where we have full digital inclusion. A future where societies can make the most of digital transformation and no one is left behind. This process would have not been possible without your support and collaboration. We have counted with inputs and insights of over 35 organizations that have also, in many cases, collaborated with us through research, working groups, or also public discussions. Through the engagement process and the sessions organized in February and November, we invited you to reflect on how we can move forward in the near future for a better digital inclusion, and we have come up with about 8 key topics of discussion that I will summarize now. Access as a fundamental right. And in our current moment, in our current pandemic, there is a pressing need to provide internet coverage and access to underserved areas. We know now that this is even more urgent, and many of us would even claim that access should be considered a fundamental right, so that nobody is excluded. Beyond access, the barriers of usage. Digital inclusion should also focus on the barriers to usage. As 3.5 billion people live with internet connectivity, but do not use it. Some of the key barriers of usage are affordability, digital literacy, user experience and devices, availability of relevant content, and availability even of the content that they need, and also safety and security. Another topic that we have worked on, digital literacy. This remains an essential tool in a digital society to overcome digital divides and to achieve equality and healthy democracies. Both digital skills and critical thinking are very relevant if we want to make more people more meaningfully connected. We also have regulation and innovation. In terms of policy making, we need to overcome the lagging behind of regulation. Regulation should work alongside with innovation if government wants to foster emerging technologies and also innovative business models to improve digital access and usage. Technological bias. In fact, the present ubiquity of AI and IoT is widening the economic divides, reinforcing bias and threatening privacy and undermining trust in information. It becomes imperative to put in place mechanisms against emerging tech, implicit and structural biases, fighting against discrimination, biased decision-making, as well as the amplification of risks to fairness, equality, and due process of data-driven technologies. But as we also have mentioned already, the issue of gender divide. A transversal perspective is needed to empower women in the digital economy, including fundamental aspects such as affordability, uses and access, that also address structural and cultural barriers. Digital inclusion for people with disabilities. People with disabilities have also often been excluded from digital ecosystems. Universal access must be a standard so everyone has equal opportunities in accessing public but also private services. Digital inclusion, definitions and metrics. And this is the last one. Finally, addressing the challenges of digital inclusion requires agreeing on definitions and developing a set of clear monitoring and measurement indicators at global scale. We must include metrics on use, skills and supporting environment if we really want to have a significant grasp of what digital inclusion entails. So I'll give the floor back now to Francisco for the next dynamic. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. I would now ask you to vote on the following question. Which topics do you think should be prioritized? You're going to have 8 options, and the options for digital inclusion should be coming up on our screens in a moment. But for those of you who have already been taking part in the previous sessions, those options are just going to come up automatically. For those of you who haven't yet, then the way you vote is to go open a separate tab on your browser or on your smartphone and go to www.menti.com. That's MENTI.com, and there's going to be a code that will appear on the screen shortly, and if you use that code, all of those options are going to show up on your screen. Now, while we wait for that, those are the options. There you go. So I can see some of you have already started voting, but I'm going to go through the options anyway, and they are beyond access, focusing on barriers to usage, digital literacy and critical thinking, the gender divide, access as a fundamental right, mechanisms against emerging tech implicit bias, regulation working along with innovation, digital inclusion definitions and metrics, and finally, digital inclusion for persons with disabilities. So I can see plenty of you are voting already, but to remind you, you can choose up to 3 of those options. You have 4 minutes to do that, and in case you have already voted, keep in mind that you can still change your options before the 4 minutes are done. So you have 4 minutes now to make your final decisions there. And the 3 most voted topics were digital literacy and critical thinking, access as a fundamental right, and the gender divide. And now we're going to move into the final interactive session of the day on tech and climate emergency. To give you a deeper insight into our final topic and discuss the outcomes from this year's activities, I bring back our director, Cristina Colom.
Thank you, Francisco. And yes, last but not least, tech and climate emergency. Actually, this is quite a newish subject matter for Digital Future Society. This is the first year in 2020 that we have focus on this specific pillar. I will do the same, so I will go a little bit on the insights and then some of the results of the engaging process for 2020. What I can say is that emergent digital technologies such as 5G, cloud and edge computing, the Internet of the Things, extended reality or blockchains, altogether they represent a double-edged sword when it comes to the global climate emergency. On the one hand, we can say emergent technologies have the potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help communities to adapt to the unavoidable impacts of climate change. For instance, there is a research from 2019 from Jesse and Deloitte that shows that those type of emerging technologies I was just referring can have a positive impact on 103 of the 169 targets of the Sustainability Development Goals from the United Nations by 2030. But on the other hand, technology's carbon footprint is staggering. Computing alone has been estimated to account for between 3.5 and 4% of global carbon emissions. Is that a lot? Well, it accounts for more than what it accounts transport sector. Other experts predict that artificial intelligence could account for 1/10 of the world's electricity use by 2025. The challenges ahead are complex and include measuring and minimizing the climate impact of emerging technologies, making data consumption more sustainable, and ensuring responsible and ethical resource extraction in technology manufacturing processes. Opportunity areas include private sector efforts to foster carbon neutral or circular economy business models, embedding cradle-to-cradle approaches in product and service design, and public sector leadership in designing regulatory frameworks and incentivizing sustainability practices. I will not go into the details of what we've done in Digital Future Society because I already mentioned as well this report on the opportunities and risk of emerging technologies. I would only highlight that we are trying to deep dive and focus on those opportunities and risks in a specific city, in the case of Barcelona. And this is another research that we are finalizing these days. If I go to the engagement process results, the main aim of the technology and the climate emergency engagement process has been to establish common horizons for a sustainable digital future in which technologies create the least possible environmental impact and contribute positively to find solutions to tackle the climate emergency. Even though we can say it's a newish subject matter for Digital Future Society, it is definitely not new for others. And we have count over 25 organizations who have contributed to the debate and to this engagement process. As well as in the other cases, I would only synthesize or summarize some of the key subject matters we've discussed during the different sessions in a summarized way. First one is cohesive environmental data space. Emerging digital technologies represent a double-edged sword, as I said before, when it comes to the global climate emergency. In this context, a cohesive environmental data space is needed, fixing principles, standards, and safeguards to monitor global climate conditions and influence governments and market suppliers. This should be coupled with access to relevant and understandable information to improve climate change policymaking. Matchmaking between the demand and the supply of solutions. In fact, there is a two-way interaction between policy and technology. Policies are required to develop climate technologies, and climate technologies are necessary to support climate policy making. Hence, government should also facilitate matchmaking between the demand and the supply of climate technology solutions. We need to test environments. Another policy instrument is the regulation and provision of innovative testing environments that allow business innovation and technology testing in real conditions with citizens. We also discuss about digital product passport of carbon footprint. To increase transparency of technology, governments should foster mechanisms such as a digital product passport to monitor the carbon footprint, which can also be a driver for change in consumer behavior. Linked to this, it is starting to be imperative for companies to start internalizing negative environmental externalities of technologies in all their products and services. Climate neutral and circular business models. Both public and private sectors should take a leadership role in investing and developing climate neutral and circular business models. There is also a need for a clear definition and methodological standards to really make an impact of all business sizes and areas. The role of public procurement. Focusing now on public procurement, policymakers should pursue the harmonization of incentive-based regulations and policy instruments to encourage tech companies to prioritize sustainability while gaining competitive advantage. Public procurement can be a catalyst for change and for the development of cleaner technologies. Collective intelligence and citizens' engagement. Moreover, the adoption of collaborative approaches and collective intelligence can be a determinant to addressing global climate challenges and changing consumer behavior. Using technology can help foster citizen engagement, for example, through participatory processes and communication strategies. And the last one to highlight, economic and social justice challenges. Technology can be an enabler to move towards a more sustainable world economically, socially, and environmentally. But at the same time, it is essential to build trust and create bridges with communities in order to address the economic and social justice challenges related to the climate emergency. And with that, I give the floor back to Francisco, and he can introduce the dynamic. Thank you.
Thank you, Cristina. Now you're going to have 9 options to vote on this question. Which of the following topics do you think should be prioritized? And the options are, with very small writing, citizen engagement, communication, and collective intelligence, climate neutral technologies and circular economy, economic and social justice challenges related to the climate emergency, matchmaking between the demand and supply of climate technology solutions, the role of public procurement, cohesive environmental data space and access to information, internalization of negative externalities in products and services, digital product passport to monitor the carbon footprint, and testing environment in real conditions for business innovation. As of before, we ask you to choose up to 3 of those to prioritize, And for most of you, I guess this is probably on your screen already with all the options, but if this is your first session you're participating in, please go to www.menti.com and type in the code you see now on your screen, and the options will be there. And you now have 4 minutes, and I'll remind you that you can change whatever you've chosen so far, so give it a longer think and use the 4 minutes well. Okay, see you back here soon. and the 3 most voted options were climate neutral technologies and circular economy, economic and social justice challenges related to the climate emergency, and citizen engagement, communication, and collective intelligence. And now, to wrap up the session and talk about next steps, I'll bring back the Digital Future Society's director, Cristina Colom. Cristina, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Francisco. Last time you need to hear from me today, so thank you for your participation in the Menti. I think it's a good exercise. I think you put us some homework, quite interesting homework for the next weeks and for the next months. Given that our initiative has a global scope, I believe Digital Future Society is very fortunate to count with over 150 experts, that they come from the public, from the private, from the academia, from the civil organizations, and from across the globe. And we are growing every day. However, even if we have a very outstanding team, we need to have more voices. We need to have more people joining our cause. The pandemic has highlighted that we really must move forward, that there is no time to waste in order to face this digital emergency. I believe this is our chance to lead the development of a human being-centered technology that can contribute to both promote initiatives and explore digital solutions for the most society pressing challenges, some of the ones I was referring at the beginning of this session. A good global initiative that I think we can all have in mind is the research for a vaccine. It has been betting on a transversal and multi-strategic approach that incorporates actors from very diverse fields with a collaborative and supportive spirit, willing to give the best of themselves to achieve success through humanistic technology. We need to have more of those global initiatives, and we need to work more on similar ones. Our objectives are framed in the purpose of continuing to become a benchmark in the digital agenda for the coming years. That is, that through our activities, through our strategic collaborations, there is an authentic call to action to make a real and authentic fight against inequality gaps, against or advancing in data ethics, or use the technology to face the social climate emergency. And we need to do it through application of technological humanism. Our ultimate goal is to ensure a fair future, a framework of ethical and legal security in the use of technology, and especially without leaving anyone behind. As I said, we are a global initiative, but we were just born a couple of years ago, and we already had the idea of establishing the roadmap to inspire that governments and corporates to take effective measures at the regulatory and legislative level to face what we now call digital emergency. The eventualities that have occurred, such as the pandemic, should not and cannot stop our mission. We will continue to work on strategic collaboration with whom we share values and priorities, conducting research on specific challenges as the ones we've mentioned, and exploring solutions in the aforementioned thematic areas. As you all know, we haven't stopped working in organizing the Global Summit for Digital Future Society. That for obvious reasons, it was going to be celebrated actually during this week, and we had to postpone to 2021. The Global Summit aspires to become the annual world reference event for technological humanism, which should serve as a global meeting point and bring together the main global and regional public and private sectors here in the city of Barcelona. The challenges, but also the advantages and opportunities of accelerating the digital transformation will be explored at the Global Summit. We will be highlighting the European perspective, and we will also like to highlight the role of Spain in building a more equitable and inclusive digital environment. Regarding the structure, virtual work sessions have already taken place during this 2020 engagement process, in which most of you have participated, around the 4 thematic pillars for Digital Future Society. This work will conclude with a statement that will be released during the Global Summit. The rest of the details of the summit will be announced gradually next year. And we will also share with you shortly the way we would be delighted that you can contribute to that summit. We are thrilled to have you at the community of Digital Future Society. And my last words to you is that we would really like to work with you hand in hand in order to shape and build this digital agenda of the future, which is fairer, more sustainable, and more inclusive. And as I said before, without leaving anyone behind. Thank you all for listening, for joining, and for all your contributions. And I hope I can see you here in Barcelona at the Global Summit in 2021. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. And once again, thank you everyone for your time and your participation in this event. And this session is now closed.